Genesis chapter 31. Genesis chapter 31. Verse 3, there is a familiar passage. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. We'd like to reason with you very briefly from the thought, going back to go forward. Going back to go forward. Have you ever tried to go forward, but it seemed like you're really going backwards? Or just these five, I see. There are many people who are frustrated because it seems that things you've been trying to do just simply won't work. You make 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backwards. You save a little money, but then when you save the money, you got to spend it to make repairs. You lose 10 pounds, then a holiday comes and you gain 15 pounds. You get over one sickness, only to be plagued by 2 more. The perpetual swing of life sometimes takes a confusing track that kind of reminds me of a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar that we had to learn when I was in college. And that poem said, a crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy and a peck of trouble, and never laugh, but the moans come double, and that is life. So at the beginning of the year, we strive to go forward, despite all the frustrations that we have, yet we are plagued with this tendency to go backwards, and that can be frustrating because sometimes it just puts us in a downer. When you start off and it seems like you're trying to go forward, you keep going backwards, it's just a downer. This morning we want to make a note to you that sometimes going backwards is necessary to go forward. Have you ever been stuck in the mud? And you've been stuck there and you trying to get the car to go forward. You got it in forward and you just spinning it. Sometimes somebody come and put an old board behind the last tire and tell you to put it in reverse. And when you back up, sometimes you can get out of the mud, but you had to back up in order to be able to go forward. Well, if that didn't happen to you, you definitely have been sitting at the train track. And if you go in any one of these neighborhoods around here at the wrong time, the train going to be across the track. And you sit there, and you sit there, and you sit there, and you sit there, and then all of a sudden you feel like you can't go forward, you got to go back. And so you find yourself, you and all the other cars, turn around and to reroute yourselves. If you got a GPS, that little lady will say, recalculating, as you turn to go a different direction. Sometimes you make a turn and you go down a dead-end street. And you didn't know it was a dead-end street. You're down there. The only way you can go forward or get to where you're trying to go is you got to go back. So in the past, we have certainly seen our share of mud hole experiences. Maybe last year we had some mud hole experiences. Some last year went down that dead-end street. Something blocked their track like the train on the track. And some found that they have to go back in order to get to where they needed to go. In Jeremiah chapter 18, verses 2 and 3, these words come, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause thee to hear my words, that I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels, And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it. Now, that verse said God wanted Israel to go forward, and he envisioned them as if they were a piece of clay on a potter's wheel. But they had a flaw in it, so he had to take them all the way down and then build them all the way back up. He had to put them back to where they were nothing flat and then build them back up. You know, if you've ever watched people skate, there are all ages of skaters that go to the skating rink. Now, I used to get out there when I carried the kids and get on the skates, you know, and kind of go around. But after I hit 65, I figured if I fall one time, that might start something else. So I just watch. But I noticed that when they skate, they got all generations, you know, and all the youngsters in here, they know what I'm talking about. You know, you out there, you skating to Beyonce and Jay-Z. You out there and you got it going. And some of the older ones in here, they skated to Lookout Weekend by Debbie Deb, and some of y'all skated to Let the Music Play by Shannon and Playing the Rock. And I was out there on one foot, you know, going out there. And then some, you know, they played a little music, and you know, you got the limbo, you know, you had to go down up under it. But I noticed that it's never a time that the kids go skating that there's somebody that doesn't turn around and skates backwards. But a unique thing about the guy that's skating backwards, he's skating backwards, but he's still going forward. He's facing the back, but he is still going forward. And therein, folks, lies the important truth for today. Sometimes going forward requires you to go backwards, but you're still going in the right direction. Can you follow that? Sometimes going forward requires you to go backwards, but you're still going in the right direction. Now, when the train blocks your track, you back up and turn around and find a new route. But even though you're backing up, you're still trying to get to the right direction. So as Christians, our goal is to press forward with our eyes on the prize. And on our journey, we may see some detours this year. You may come to some dead ends this year. You may get stuck in the mud this year. But when it comes necessary, it may come a time for you to have to back up in order to go forward, but keep your eyes on Jesus, because he will show you the way. Now, if you keep that as an introductory thought and extrapolate it, now they tell me in mathematics, extrapolation means if you got one dot here and one dot there, and when you extrapolate, you can go from this dot to that dot, and you can just about guess where the next one going to go. So if we take that introductory thought and extrapolate it, it'll sit right down on our text message for today on Genesis chapter 31. Because what's happening here? This is Jacob when he's making his decision to go home after spending 2 decades living with his uncle. Now, y'all know the story of Jacob. You know, he had a brother, you know, Esau, and the two brothers got married with each other because one cheated him out of his birthright, and he sold him his birthright for a bowl of porridge. And then Esau told him, "If I ever see you again, I'm gonna kill you." Do folk in family say them kind of words? Oh, they still say that today? You get so mad you want to kill your brother, kill your sister. You do realize when people fight each other, they're actually trying to kill each other. Only in the boxing ring, they're really not trying to kill each other. But when you're fighting somebody, you are actually trying to kill them. You hitting them with your fist, and you ain't hitting them just like that. You hitting them with everything you got. You're trying to knock their brains out. You're trying to mess their eyes up. You hurt them. You're actually trying to kill them. You know you're in a bad shape when you get to where you're so out of control. And what you fighting over sometimes because mama like you more than she like me, and I've been hating you for the last 20 years. I'm gonna bust you upside your head. Somebody fought during the Christmas holidays. Couldn't even make it through the holidays. Had to fight about it. Brothers and sisters, here was Jacob and Esau. And Esau said, "If I ever see you again, I'm going to kill you." But now, here is Jacob living with his uncle over in another land. He's prospered. He got money. He got buku money. Money just flowing. I mean, everywhere. He got sheep, cattle. He got a whole house full of children, 2 wives, everything. He worked 14 years to get 2 wives. And he got all these children, all this money. And he could easily say, I'm just going forward right where I am. But in order for him to go forward, God says, there's something else you got to do. You got to go back. Wait a minute, Lord, I got sheep, I got cattle, I got all these children, I got 2 pretty wives, I got all this stuff, and you telling me in order for me to continue progressing, I got to go back. He said, yeah, you got to go. But if I go back, my brother say, when he see me again, he gonna kill me. So he went back, doing what God said. When he got there, just before he got home, he was so scared, he started sending presents out to his brothers, so hey, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. And then that night, the scripture says he had a wrestling match with God. And it was God in the form of an angel or a man, and he was wrestling with him and trying to decide, what can I do? What should I do? And there he wrestled with him, trying to decide whether he should go back or not. And he evolved from that situation with a firm resolution that he would go forward and take care of the loose ends. When he went back, he found out that his brother was waiting for him. But he wasn't waiting to kill him. But he was waiting for him with open arms. He even gave him the presents back. Said, you don't have to give me any presents. And his end, because after he went back, was even more prosperous, even more happy, even more fulfilled in the Lord. He went forward in victory, but first he had to go back. Now, there are a few things that we ought to be able to glean from this whole idea as we start our brand new year, or what we're going to do for ourselves. And because we're moving forward, and we're moving forward rapidly, yet it's impossible for us to do so unless we take into account the fact that our progress is moving so fast that sometimes we lose some of the essentials that we need along the way. To go forward successfully, we may need to go back and reevaluate, or do like the lady say on the GPS, recalculate and see whether or not. First, if we have lost family values, we need to get them back. If we have lost family values, we need to get them back. Modern family, although it has been redefined by our changing times that we're living in, the role of the parent has changed, but it seems like some of our families have lost a little something. We stay in the same household, but you get the idea that sometimes folk don't love each other. Children don't talk to their parents. Parents don't talk to their children. And it's a disheartening thing when you come to school and you sit down and you talk to children and you say, do you and your mother ever talk? No. Do y'all ever, what do y'all say? She asked me, how was school? How was everything doing? Go in the room, get your lesson, make sure you wash the dishes, and that's the end of the conversation. And she don't know who my boyfriend is. She don't know anything. All she tells me is all the things I ain't supposed to do, and she give me that long list, and that's our conversation. And so the connection is lost. And sometimes we have children, but we don't even know their favorite movie, their favorite music, their favorite song. We don't listen. We don't share. We'll send them to the football practice, but we'll stay at home. We'll send them to the dance, but we don't go to the recital. We disconnected. And sometimes husband and wives living in the same house don't know each other, been married for years and years and years and don't know each other. Sometimes we've lost the love, and we've lost respect. See, respect comes from the point of where we learn to respect ourselves first, respect the way we dress, and you shouldn't leave your house with dirty clothes on, wrinkled up shirt. See, do you remember there was never a time when a parent would send their child out of school with dirty clothes on? Oh, Lord, no. Would never let you go out with a wrinkle up. I remember when we had holes in our pants and that we had to put put patches on top of them. And now the kids go to the store and pay a whole lot of money for pants with the holes already in them. Y'all ain't even got time for the pants to wear out. You got to buy them with the holes already in them. We send them out with wrinkled clothes, dirty clothes. And then at home we allow children to speak to us any kind of way. Now, when they call you all kind of names at home, guess what they're going to call the teacher? When they get to school, they're going to call the teacher all kind of stuff. And when they get to work, they're going to think they can call their boss all kinds of names. Values of love and respect and the sense of community all comes from home. In most homes in the past, where people used to go out, everybody would do a little volunteering. You volunteer for the Salvation Army, volunteer at the homeless shelter. Everybody do a little volunteering. It ain't all about me. But now we're getting more and more homes where nobody volunteers for anything. And if you say, we finna pick up paper along the side of the street, so I didn't put it down there, how much you gonna pay me to pick it up? You know? Nobody feels like they should do anything. Those are values that are slipping away from us a little at a time. Our language is going terrible. We're cursing and we're getting down to even in the household now. The child sees mother and father fight and cuss each other and call each other B's and W's and H's and all those kinds of things, and they get all upset. Some homes have become war zones. When you come home in the evening, you expect to get cussed out and you to cuss back, and you got to have your defenses up. And so instead of being a safe harbor, you enter into a war zone. If the family is to go forward in 2017, we need to go back and visit some of the values that have sustained us over the years. There's still some value in teaching our children to respect their elders. There's still some value in that you respect the old people, and you respect that. You don't call old folk by their first name, and if they ain't the same age as you, if they're 2 or 3 years older than you, it's yes sir, no ma'am. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But somehow or another, folk done got modern now because they're watching TV, and the kids say yeah, no, and roll their eyes and whatever else. Say there ain't nothing wrong with respect in the home and respecting each other. We need to perhaps go back a little bit and pick up some of the values. Nothing wrong with saving for a rainy day. They always used to tell me that when I was little, to save for a rainy day. Well, oh man, it's raining. Can I use it now? I didn't understand what they meant by rainy day. But now we get in households that spend all. Nobody saves nothing. And children are being taught the same thing. Very few children now got a bank. They got a little piggy. You used to have a little piggy bank or something, make a little noise when you put it in there. But you don't have, very few now have a bank. Mama ain't teaching the child to save because mama ain't saving either. Daddy ain't teaching the child to save. Daddy ain't saving either. And sometimes going in the child's bank, taking it out. Brothers and sisters, those are values of dressing appropriately, living with integrity. Integrity is taught in the household. You're taught in your household, and there's certain things our family members don't do. You are Harris, we don't do that. You are Pierce, we don't do that. You are Smith, we don't do that. We don't speak that way. We don't care. You are Johnson, we don't talk that way. And there was a sense of pride that you had in your household, that our children don't do that because we're taught better. Brothers and sisters, if we are getting so busy trying to go forward, we might need to go back and pick up those things which have carried us. The idea of family time is killing us today. We don't have it anymore. We have more technology now to the fact that when we sit down at the table, we got it. I got my iPhone. My wife got her iPhone. My 2 grandsons came home. They had their gadgets. Their daddy had their gadget. Their mama had their gadget, and all of us sitting around looking at gadgets. And when you think about it, think of your household and all the gadgets, and we're all looking at each other. And the only way you're going to get to see their faces is put your face and then get it over to theirs so they can see it. The idea of family time with less technology and less television would give us more interaction between each other. Kids say, preacher, don't say that, please don't say that, preacher. Less television and less technology and more time for us to be able to talk and to share our hopes and dreams. It may be a little old-fashioned, but those who go back and reclaim this old value will find that going back will actually help your family to go forward. But then there's a second thought for you to consider. Success may require you to retool yourself. Success may require you to retool yourself. There comes a time when we need to revisit our old situations. Everybody now today, especially if you're around 30-something years old, or between 30 and 50, the kinds of jobs that are available now may require you to retool yourselves for the new jobs that are on the horizon. All those jobs that went back to Mexico and those places at the factories that went down to China and places, when those jobs come back, if they come back, if those plants come back, guess what? A lot of the jobs that you used to do won't be there anymore. A lot of them are going to be replaced by the technology. So if you want a job, you need to prepare for the new jobs on the horizon. Do you know that robots are making cars now? We carried all the time travelers up to Detroit, and if they're looking at the plant, and they had robots making the cars and then screwing in the light bulbs. They just had one man walking down the aisle checking. They done replaced all of them $35 an hour jobs with giant robots that's painting the doors and hooking them on and plugging them in and everything. We carried them out to California, and we saw a computerized McDonald's. You just walk up to it, you say you want a Big Mac with fries, you want a whole onions, and thing says, thank you very much. And then the next thing you know, it's all dropping down. You see it coming down the assembly line, the meat drops, the bread drops, the whole onion, it don't go on. It wraps it up, throws it into a microwave, drops it into a bag, glass comes up, and you put your money in, and all of 20-something jobs in McDonald's are gone. Sweeping floors are going out now. You got a little thing they see you advertise it on TV called a Roomba. They just turn it on and it just runs all over your house and sweep everything. All your manual stuff is going out. We may have to retool. Brothers and sisters, though you say, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to clean house, I'm going to clean up all the time. They buying them big old giant Roombas for schools so they can get rid of school janitors. You know, we're suggesting to you, brothers and sisters, that we might need to do some serious thinking about retooling. You say you're going to be a cab driver, you ain't been watching lately. Because Uber is out there now, and they got a driverless Uber. You say, I ain't going to have no driverless car, but that's all it's going to be pretty soon. And it's going to come in your lifetime. So drivers are going out. And schoolrooms are going to have virtual classrooms where you get one teacher down in Baton Rouge who gets on a big screen, and she teaches all the folk in Louisiana at one shot. Guess what happens to all the teachers? All the other places, they can save money by displacing, just have 5 or 6 teachers all over the state and just have other little small people with no degrees to keep the children in line. Virtual classrooms are happening. You take a class at the university now, you hardly ever see a professor, primarily because it's all computerized. The technology is changing. Musicians that play for the churches on Sunday now, what happens is they digitizing all the music now. They even got the part where they can get behind the preacher. They can push the button, and Robert's selling them all over the country where you can do it digitized all over the country. Brothers and sisters, Bibles, electronic Bibles now, instead of the paper Bibles. And those who in the workplace, you already see these things already happening to you. We may have to retool. There are people in this town that can remember that early in the morning, they used to have a machine here in Monroe that come along and sweep the streets. They used to have a man that sweep the streets, and now the machine has taken that man's job. When you have a funeral, they used to have men that come out afterwards, and they would be there with shovels, digging the hole. But now they got a machine that comes in and scoop it up, and there went the grave digger's job, just going away. There was a time when the police officer would stand out on the street and direct the traffic. Now you have automatic signals going in and out. So what does it mean going forward? It may require some people to go back and retool yourself. Get you a job that requires you to think. And if your job only requires you to work with your hands, the boss is already trying to figure out a way to eliminate that job. If everything you do every day is the same thing and it's by your hand, there's a computer system coming up right pretty soon that's going to eliminate. And if it's 10 folks in y'all business that do that, they're going to keep one and get rid of the other 9. And so you need to go and retool yourself. You may still have a television in your house with rabbit ears on it, but it don't pick up no signal. You may still have an 8-track tape in your house, but ain't nothing new coming on that thing, even if it still plays. If you're planning to live a few more years, you better get a computer and the internet in your house. If you got children or grandchildren staying in your house, you better don't be buying them no shoes and no Jordans and all that. They got to have a computer and internet service. In the day's time, if you're planning on being around for a few more years, you better learn how to use the technology that's here. You may need to go back and retool to be able to keep up in today's time. Because if you're waiting to get a letter in the mail where somebody says, "How are you? I hope this letter finds you fine," that ain't going to happen no more. Person walk up to you and they say, "What's your email address?" And you say, "I don't have no email." They say, "Oh, Lord. Oh, you ain't got no email?" Donald Trump was on television the other day talking about, "I don't have email." Oh, my goodness. He's in bad shape. Every home needs to be able to keep up, and we say that retooling yourself, it might mean going back to school. I'm 40 years old, go back to school. I'm 50 years old, go back to school. The other day in school, Ms. Davis told the class and said that she had been working all her life, and all of a sudden she decided that she needed to go back to school. And they said, well, that's fine. But she said, "But I'm 50 years old when I went back to school." She said, "What? I thought you was 30 years old." And she said, "At 50 years old, I went back to school." And she went back to school at 50. Can you imagine going to college and sitting up there with all of them 13, 18-year-olds sitting up in college? But the ones that's 50 and 55, them the ones making the straight A's. Because they understand they're trying to retool themselves. And she went back and got her bachelor's degree, went back again, got her master's degree. And we suggest to you that it might be necessary. If you dropped out of school, you can't make it picking up. The Army don't even want you no more. If you dropped out of school, you got to go back and retool. To go forward, you got to have what the old folks say, education. You got to have it. Go back and retool. If you don't have your high school equivalency yet, you need to have it. But in order to get in, retool if you're going to go forward. Success will require you to retool in order to go forward. But then thirdly, you might want to consider this. We need to go back to God. We need to go back to God. In our quest to go forward, we often make the mistake of mistaking busyness for godliness. We feel if we were engaged in honest work and we're doing some honest things, and that noteworthy service, we got an award from the Rotary Club, we got an award from the Lions Club, we got an award from the sorority, and we feel like we're doing great stuff. But we did all that at the expense of godliness and our godly work. We have a semblance, yes, of a godly life. We're not doing bad things. We have a semblance of a godly life based on what we were taught when we were a child, but we haven't maintained it since we've been adults. If I were to give you a beautiful rose today, and I would go and cut it and give you a beautiful rose, and you set it on the mantle of your house in a little jar with some water in it, you could watch it and it would be beautiful for a day or two. But after a day or two, that rose would start to wither around the edges. You come back in a couple of more days and it'll be withered all the way up. Why? What caused the rose to wither? It's in water. What happened is you cut the rose off from its source that kept it beautiful like it was. You are the person you are because of your faith, and your faith is sustained because you feed it all the time through prayer, through worship, through Bible study. If you cut yourself off, you are a rose that's been cut off. And after a while, you will find yourself withering around the edges. Brothers and sisters, we need to go back if you done cut yourself off and to replug yourself back in again. How many today are saying, "Well, I'm doing fine, I'm doing good"? Usually like that rose. After they first cut you, you say, "Well, I ain't go to church this month and I'm still blessed," you know. And you show your face. You show your face one Sunday, and then you go another whole month and not show up, and you say, "Oh, I'm still blessed." You think you're looking good like that rose, but after a while you start withering around the edges. Your faith has to be fed constantly. You learn it as you hear it, and your faith builds. The day is going to come when you're down and you can't come to worship. The day is going to come when the devil is going to be on your back. And the only thing you got that's holding you is the faith that you fed yourself when you were up and on your feet. You think you're not going to get sick? Live on. You think you're not going to have arthritis and bursitis? Live on. You think you're not going to have tragedy to come in your family? Live on. You think death is not going to come in your family? Live on. But when those times come, those people who have been feeding themselves through Bible study and through prayer and through worship, they feed themselves. I came to a funeral once and I saw the lady sit on the front and all she was saying to the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And she kept saying it over and over and over because she was pulling it up because she had learned and it was coming to her memory and it was coming up and it was sustaining her even when everybody around her was falling out. What she was doing was letting the word of God comfort her during that time. If you don't put it in, it can't come out. Here was David, who was a great king, and he was doing well, and he was doing well. He started living good. He's building a nice kingdom, winning all his battles. He was doing fine. And he got to where he just put the things of God on the back shelf. He even started having a little adultery there. Went out with a pretty woman, had her husband killed. He did a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Disconnected himself from God completely and totally. And then all of a sudden his whole kingdom started falling all down around him. And he couldn't find anything to draw on, any strength to draw on. And then finally in the 51st Psalm, verse 10, he started crying out, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. And he went back to God. And when he went back to God, God gave him the strength to be able to get back on his feet again and to go forward. And today, David is known as one of the greatest kings that Israel has ever had. But he had to go back first before he could go forward. Now, those three things that I've talked about, is one of those you today? Is that you? Is that your situation today? Do you need to retool yourself? Do you need to perhaps get our family together and let's talk about changing the way we do a few things? Have I gotten so busy that my things of God have gotten off track? Today, perhaps we might need to say, in order for us to go forward as a family, in order for me to go forward as an individual, I might need to go back. And finally, brothers and sisters, we must consider that when we find God after going back, we also find our future. When we find God, we also find our future. Jacob had a lot going for him with his uncle Laban, but on the way home, he wrestled with God. And it's a tough thing when you have to wrestle with yourself. And when you are a spiritual person, you're not only wrestling with yourself, but you're wrestling with God. That night, God's holy angel held on to Jacob, and they wrestled all night long. But when the sun started to come up in the morning, the angel said, let me go. And he said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. He wrestled with his own misgivings. He wrestled with his own personal fears. He wrestled with his own anxiousness. But he wouldn't let go until God blessed him. If we are planning to go forward in the future, you need to notice that one thing is for sure, that our faithfulness to God needs to be intact. And if your faithfulness has been slack, then we need to first go back to God and talk to him in our heart. If we find the Lord, he will change things around for us. Somebody here can testify that when you find the Lord, he will change things. When you find the Lord, he will give you serenity in the midst of your storms. When you find the Lord, he'll give you assurance in the middle of your afflictions. When you find the Lord, he'll give you courage to fight your battles When you find the Lord, he'll give you composure in the middle of your calamities. When you find the Lord, he'll give you support in the middle of your sufferings. Once you get back to the Lord, you'll find that your circumstance can be changed. Once you get back to the Lord, doors that have been closed in your face can be opened again. When you get back to the Lord, all of your enemies can be defeated. When you get back to the Lord, you'll find your problems are easier to solve. When you get back to the Lord, you'll find that all of your doubts can be dissolved and your fears can be conquered. When you get back to the Lord, your friendships can be restored and your marriages can be salvaged. When you get back to the Lord, your soul can be converted and the lost can be saved. Like David, we ought to say, take me back to the point where I first found my relationship with God. Can you remember when you first saw God in your mind? Can you remember when Jesus first came in your life? Somebody felt good that day when the Lord came into your life. Take me back to the time when I enjoyed reading my Bible. Take me back to the time when I felt uneasy when I wasn't at church on Sunday. Take me back to the time where I felt I had to come to midweek study so I can learn a little bit more. Take me back to the point when I was enthused and excited about living for the Lord. That's what the songwriter had in mind when he said, take me back, dear Lord, to the place where I first received you. Take me back where I first believed. Take me back a long way back. Take me back to the cross, the day when I saved, my soul was saved. Take me back to the day when you carried me down in the cold water and I came up saying it chilled my body but not my soul. Take me back to when I say I give my heart to God and my hand to you in fellowship. Take me back to the old rugged cross, because at the cross where I first saw the light and the burdens of my heart roll away, it was there by faith I received my sight. And now I'm happy all the day. The future is tied to the cross, that old rugged cross that Jesus carried up Golgotha's hill, that old rugged cross where he was nailed for our transgression. On that cross he died. Yes, he died. They buried him in a borrowed tomb, but early Sunday morning, he rose up from the grave with all power in his hand. I'm so glad that our God is still able. He's able to wipe tears from my eyes. He's able to lift up a bowed down head. He's able to heal me when I'm sick. He's able to give me a brand new start. I'm so glad that God is able. Somebody ought to say, yeah, ah, yeah. And somebody today needs to say, I need to go back to what I was taught. I need to go back to what I was taught. I was taught that if I put my hand in God's hand, that he'll guide me.